I remember walking out with my dog Mocha to go take the trash out at our apartment and go through the first gate, and then she stops and I look up and there's a sow and like 3 cubs in the dumpster and I'm like, like my little bag of trash, and I'm like, hey bear, hey, get out of here, and I'm like, you're gonna get fat, get out of here, like that was my defense for some reason. Shaming it, I don't know, and they left, or jumped out and climbed over the fence, and my dog took off back to the apartment. Thanks, German Shepherd, I remember there was a cub on the fence, a cub in the tree, and then the mom and other cub were on the other side, and I'm standing there, locking everything, and I look up and I just see her pause, and she just woofs at me, whoop.
That's the voice of Emily Cram, a gamekeeper at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. That close encounter with a mama bear and her cubs happened when Emily was going to college in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. We'll get back to Lake Tahoe later in this episode, but first, I'm Katie Yates, and this is Season 4 of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife's podcast, Fishing Game Changers. In this series, Take Aim, I'm hearing from Mainers about their first-time hunting experiences. I'm learning about what motivates them to go hunting, and how hunting has changed them and deepened their connection to the outdoors and conservation. Throughout this series, I'll be speaking with lifelong hunters, former vegetarians, and adult onset hunters like Emily.
I am Emily Cram, and I work at the Maine Wildlife Park with the department as a gamekeeper.
In case you're not familiar, the Maine Wildlife Park is a place where families, nature lovers, photographers, and wildlife enthusiasts can meet Maine's wildlife and learn all about them. The park is home to over 30 species of Maine wildlife that cannot be returned to their natural habitats. Some are there because they were injured or orphaned, and others because they are human dependent, raised, sometimes illegally, in captivity. The animals at the park can receive the specialized care they need from gamekeepers like Emily. Learn more about the Maine Wildlife Park by visiting mainewildlifepark.com. What's your favorite animal at the park?
My favorite that I interact with probably the most would be Marilyn, our bald eagle. She talks and talks and talks and just squawks and squawks, and you can kind of go in and squawk back to her, and she hops around. And she fell out of a nest and broke her wing, so she can't fly, and so she's with us, has been with us for pretty much her whole life. And she's just chatty and acknowledging of your presence and happy to see you. When you have little chicken wings, she hops right down and grabs them from you. And then the other one is Miriam, our beaver. She's a crowd favorite. She loves attention. She comes right up to the fence and will be cleaning herself, or will swim around and be, definitely puts on a show. And I think she knows it, that everyone loves her.
Emily grew up in a family who loves horses, not hunting.
I grew up with horses. I started riding when I was 5.5 and had a sweet hot pink styrofoam bicycle helmet, black leggings, and some black cowboy boots with silver accents.
That's a look.
It was a great, unfortunately, there is photo evidence.
Emily traveled to participate in riding competitions and eventually attended a college with an equestrian team, but still uncertain about her career path, she headed out west and took a semester to participate in the National Outdoor Leadership School, also known as NOLS, a nonprofit outdoor education school. For this experience, she would bring supplies on horseback to other NOLS students backpacking or working in the backcountry. Through this, she met locals who recommended she work at a hunting outfitter.
So I got to know some locals that they knew my love for horses and being in the mountains, and they knew I wanted to stay out there, and suggested that I work at a hunting outfit in Cora, Wyoming. I had no idea what that meant either, of like, okay, a hunting outfit, like, I know nothing about hunting, but I know horses. I like to cook, but because that was the really common thing, is women just being like the camp cook for hunting outfits. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to advertise myself as like this like famous cook, because I mean, I like to cook, and when I do cook, I've heard it's pretty good, but agreed to help the camp cook and be in charge of all the horses and mules. And we had like, it was 40 some odd total. We didn't always have them all with us. And we had 3 different camps that we would, some of them we'd trailer in and have like little paddocks set up and shelters and water tubs and everything. Or we would pack in strings of horses and mules up to our camp and hobble them all, you're camped in an area with plenty of food and like grass and forage and water source, and then we'd bring in either alfalfa cubes or grain or something if we needed to.
What was that like for you, being a woman who is thought of as maybe you'll cook and with no experience in hunting, and going to this place that we have, I'm assuming, a bunch of dudes who want to hunt?
I didn't know what to expect, so I kind of just was like, went with the flow, and I was held to like the same standard as the guys that I worked with. So I mean, if it was time to split wood, we split wood. You know, maybe I didn't keep up quite as much, but and it was a brutal lifestyle, I have to say. You're up way before the sun, which I don't mind doing that, but when they have to ride out 2 hours to where they want to be when the sun comes up, that means you need to be up an hour and a half or so before that. Light fires in all your clients' tents, in their stoves, to get them like warm and ready for the day. Feed the horses, get them saddled and ready. Get all of your clients' lunches ready for the next day, and cook them a warm, hot breakfast to send them off. I mean, you're drinking coffee at like 3 a.m., you know, and it's brutal. And sending them off. I didn't grow up hunting, so it was all new to me. And I think even more of the unique situation was I never saw them kill anything. I just showed up and then was responsible for getting it on our mules and horses and strapping it up and packing it out successfully, and, you know, getting it home and dodging grizzly bears and weather and heat and snow and everything.
Needless to say, this is a pretty intense job, and like most 20-somethings, Emily was still trying to figure out what she wanted to do and what would work for her in the long term.
So I think being out west, like that hunting camp, I was like, oh, this is great, but I don't think I really knew like what to do next. I don't think, I think I was in a lot of transit of school, and what am I going to school for? What do I want to do with my life? Is this what I want to do? This is great, but it's seasonal work.
That brings us back to Lake Tahoe. Emily was swayed to stay westward by the mountains and the adventure. Right around the time she was writing her senior thesis, Emily had that close encounter with the bear and her cubs. And Nevada was deciding whether or not it would allow bear hunting in a limited capacity when relocating bears and the 3 strikes policy wasn't working to reduce the population to a safe level.
And they were deciding to reinstate their black bear hunt in the state of Nevada my senior year. And so I did my senior thesis actually on that action. They've tried relocating like the other side of the state of Nevada, down, because Lake Tahoe is divided by California and Nevada, and they would bring them down to Southern California. They'd come back.
Wow.
It'd take a little while, but they would come back. But less than a year. So for my senior thesis, I did an interview with one of their biologists, and after talking to that biologist, and I knew after that project, like, I wanted to do something with wildlife.
You were introduced to it for the first time at that outfitter,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do a project about population management, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so how do you get from there to hunting?
Yeah, I moved back to Maine, was then kind of surrounded, got introduced to different friends, and we're big hunters, and kind of was like, oh.
Surrounded by opportunity and a community of hunters, Emily was finally able to take all the experiences of being confronted with hunting tangentially and make the next move. Using an apprentice license, she went turkey hunting for the first time. The apprentice license allows someone to forego a hunter safety course as long as they are accompanied by a licensed hunter. There are some nuances to this license type, and if you want to learn more, visit emmyfishwildlife.com. In order to get ready for her hunt, Emily thought she needed to buy everything new and fancy, all the best gear, all the best camo, but she recommends for newbies, just try borrowing. We'll get into it more later, but for Emily, having a network of friends and a community of hunters is an essential part of hunting. She usually goes hunting alone, but she has enjoyed the friendships and connections she has made with other hunters. Those groups are a place for her to share experiences, ask questions, and inquire about gear.
Getting ready to go hunting for the first time is like, I mean, stereotypically you think, okay, now I need to go buy a gun, I need camo pants, I need a camo jacket, I need a camo hat, I need camo gloves, I need a camo gaiter, I need a camo hut, I need camo everything, and
Underwear.
Yeah, you're hunting in your camo underwear. Kind of jealous, but everyone will tell you, oh, you don't actually need all of, everyone has different opinions on that. And I would highly recommend borrowing things in the future first. I went out on my first turkey hunt, and there was nothing. Nothing was happening, and did not have a ground blind for this first turkey hunt. We're just in a wood line, and birch trees, and just kind of branches everywhere. And turkeys, their sight is so good. So I remember just being told, don't move. Don't move. And when this turkey, Tom, finally started coming in from a half a mile away, came completely across this property we were on, and a friend was calling him for me, and it was painful of how long it was, and I couldn't see him, but he could, my friend, and so then I'm I can't see it, so I don't know where he is. I don't know if I tilt my head a certain way, is he gonna see me? This is the first time I've ever done this. I don't really know how good their sight is because their head is the size of a golf ball,
Their eyesight can't be that good.
Right, you've got to be kidding me. And watching him finally come in, and just that whole anticipation of okay, now do I shoot? Now, no, do I shoot yet? Do I shoot now? Do I wait? Do I, I see his head, but he's in full strut, but he's too close to the decoy, but the whole questioning of the whole process, is it too far away? Is he gonna see me? And I pull up, my gun's too heavy, having it held up that long.
My hands are frozen.
Right, and so it was crazy, and so then I finally shot. I just totally fell in love with it, and for my second turkey so that was the only one I got that season, because it was the next year I went out by myself.
Hunting alone for Emily is her preference. Not only does hunting alone give her solitary time in the woods connecting with nature, but it also allows her to make the shots and decisions she's comfortable with.
I've been by myself for most of them, of just being able to make the decision for myself when I was comfortable for a shot. I know I watched a buck, one of the biggest deer I've ever seen, just outside of my zone that I had agreed on with the mentor that this was my threshold with the gun I was shooting, and my experience, we're not gonna do anything crazy, and being by myself, this is your threshold. And I had one of the biggest deer I've ever seen come out and stand 20 yards past that, if that. And I watched him for 40 minutes. And I pulled up on him as practice. I had zero intention of pulling the trigger because I had agreed that was my threshold. I wasn't experienced enough. This is what I'm doing. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I shot a unicorn as my first buck. A tiny little spike. And then worked up to a 3-pointer.
Emily has worked with animals and has had pets all her life. As is the case with many later converts to hunting, she had to grapple with an emotional component.
I was really nervous to continue to hunt bigger game. I think of just that emotional connection of how am I going to react? Can I do it? Can I actually pull the trigger on an animal? And my whole life since I was 5 or 6, I was loving on horses and ponies and dogs, and was a mess if something got hurt, and I'm an emotional basket case if an animal has to die or it gets put down or anything like that. And I do still cry every time I shoot a deer, and I think that's okay. I think that's
hunters can cry.
Yeah, and I think
real hunters cry.
Real hunters cry. I think people say, I think they laugh about it's okay to show emotion for something. It's almost bad if you don't, that you care about this animal, and it doesn't have to be some big drawn out saga about thanking your animal and acknowledging its life and then moving on.
Remember earlier when I mentioned Emily's hunting network? She is active in many formal and informal groups that support hunters. Formal groups like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, or BHA, and informal groups on social media like the Maine Women Hunters Group.
So a big one is the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is a really great community. All over the country, they work really hard, and I think are continuing to work through, especially the chaos right now of getting people together to experience new things, new hunters, experienced hunters, getting together for clay shooting or trash pickups, or they do an event, Hike to Hunt. So it's just hiking. It's fun and it's growing. There's movie screenings.
Pint nights.
Pint nights, yeah, which is just hanging out and chatting. And we did a turkey calling pint night one night, which was
loud,
a blast. Loud. But with the diversity of events we have, we attract different people as well. And I highly recommend trying to get involved with a community of some sort. There's lots of Maine deer hunters,
Maine Women Hunters.
Yeah, the Maine Women Hunters Facebook group is an incredible resource. Just a place for women to just ask the question, how do you pee in the woods? How do you pee in a tree stand?
Her advice for anyone interested in hunting?
Just do it. Oh, yes, just do it.
Just do it.
But but ask the questions too. No one's gonna fault you for asking questions and being unsure. That's okay. And you're never too old to learn or to start, and you don't even have to. You don't have to hunt. You can also you can go with someone. You can share an experience with someone. Finding a new community, because all of a sudden now I've met dozens of other women and men through BHA that I would never have known before, that share similar problems, similar issues. We find out we like live near each other and like hike the same areas. You find then connections to other people across the country, but just that alone time in the woods, and it can just be for an hour, it can be for 2 hours, it can be for a whole day. I think you can make it work however works for you, which I think is cool, is always worth it. Whether you just see the sun come up, or a turkey walks by at 80 yards and you can't shoot it, or you're successful. It's 99% of the time always worth it.
Next week, I chat with someone whose hunting mentor made all the difference. To learn more about this series and for hunting resources, visit mefishwildlife.com/changers. You know the drill. To stay up to date with current episodes, hit subscribe on your favorite listening app. If that happens to be the Apple Podcast app, leave us a rating and let us know what you think. Share your first-time hunting experiences with us on Instagram. Tag the department at ME Fish Wildlife and use the hashtag HuntME.